third at Nike Cross Nationals last season. Or actually, excuse me, yes, third overall at Nike Cross Nationals. Just about a few minutes away from the start of our girls' Race of Champions race. You see the Webb School out of Tennessee, and their leader right in the front is Abby Faith Cheeseman. Again, just committed to the University of Virginia just a couple weekends ago. So talking about last year's race, unlike the boys' race, which was won by an in-state kid, last year's girl race was won by someone from the state of New York in Zariel Makia of William Floyd, now a senior this season, off to BYU next fall. And what a battle that was between her and Nikki Sutherland in the final stages of that race. It ended up running 17 flat. Just 0.3 of away from running the course record, which was set by Judy Pendergrass of Naperville North back in 2015 at the NXR Midwest meet. Team race. Mounts Prospect coming out on top as they defeated Noblesville with a really impressive 91 points to 133 by Noblesville. And the majority of that team is back this season, including Veronica Najeda, Meg Peterson, Ireland Wildheart, Ella Benazzi, all of which ran at Nike Cross Nationals last season too. Among those other schools competing with Mount Prospect, Carmel of Indiana, last year they finished 7th in this meet. Well, they'll return 4 of their top 5 in Annabelle Pollard, Nola Eiling, Larkin Taylor, and Olivia Munt. And then you throw Sadie Foley, the junior, who's been running really well this season, posting a personal best of 18:10 back on September 21st. A solid 5 that they have right there. And then here's an interesting factoid for all those out there watching. Of course, as I mentioned, there are schools from outside the state of Indiana here, and one of those schools happens to be the South Texas Heat Homeschool. Now, the reason why this is an interesting school, one, it's the homeschool, so obviously not very many athletes, but if you're thinking homeschool, it's like, how did they able to put a team together? Well, there are 5 sisters that are on the team together, the Lotta sisters. Perhaps maybe the first all-sister team that could make a run for a title at this particular meet, rather just any sort of meet in general. And a lot of talent on that team, and it's, of course, led by their freshman sister, Ellen Lotta, who ran 17:23 to finish second at the McNeil Invitational on September 20th. And then there's also freshman Iris, Remy, Reese, who've all finished under 20 minutes in that race. And then you add sophomore Addison, which, again, adding them all up together puts together a scoring team. So they have 5 girls. So it's interesting to see what this homeschool team can do from the team race. But Carmel of Indiana, probably the favorite of all these schools, ranked number 20 in the latest DieStat National Top 30 team rankings. And Mount Prospect not too far behind, looking to see if they can repeat as champions. Final race of the evening. They're all ready to go. They're excited. They're amped up and ready to get going here on this start line of this girls' race of champions. It's been fun these last 48 hours here in Cross Country Town, USA, and been delighted to have you all tuned in here on runnerspace.com. Calm before the storm. The final race here at Nike XC Town Twilight. The gun has been fired and they're off here in Terre Haute, Indiana. The race of champions on the girls' side. And an update from that race of champions. Bloomington North appears to have come away with the team win. Scoring unofficially 169 points. We're still awaiting the confirmation of those actual results. But at this point, Bloomington North, the team champions on the boys' side. Talked about the teams, those individuals mentioned a little bit during those open races. Lily Alder, Jane Hendren of Timpview, somewhere in that front mix. We'll eventually see them emerge at some point once we get down to this downhill portion. And those that have decided to really take it out early on here, it's not necessarily paid off for them down the road. Though one athlete we've definitely paying attention to and has ran on this course so many times is Libby Dowdy of Indian Creek. Right there in that pink jersey. And has had a really good start to her junior season. That includes a very fast time of 16:49.5 that she ran almost a month ago. So this is her first race at September 7th at the Brownsburg Invite, when she won that race in 16:49.5. It was a Nike Cross Nationals All-American, finishing 17th in that race last year at a very, very muddy and wet Lenderveer golf course that basically had a lake. And if anybody were to finish in the top 21 there, it's just hats off to you. You accomplished that in itself, just being able to conquer that course. Seeing there for the first time, Jane Hendren back there in 4th place, just right behind Dowdy. And now Hendegren to your right is now just caught up to that lead pack and has settled in just right behind Dowdy. Along with Julia Score, another standout right here in the state of Indiana. Battle of Indiana's best versus Utah's best. Coming up to that first mile, just coming up on to 4.5 minutes into this race of champions. Abby Faith Cheeseman right there just behind Hendegren. Now just 5 minutes through. To the left of Dowdy is actually one of those homeschool racers, Aline Lotta, a freshman. She's off to a great start so far. Her high school debut as they gone through that first mile, 5:17.6 for Libby Dowdy leading that front group. Jane Hendegren right next to her, Julia Score up there, then Annika Swan of Chicago St. Ignatius College. As it's a pack of 5. And Lily Alder just trailing back there in 7th, along with Emily Wisniewski of Crescent Valley of Oregon. 3rd last year at Nike Cross Nationals, and again, one of the many athletes that have made the trek here from the West Coast. To go 4 across, just past that 2-kilometer stretch, Hendegren and Lotta, Cheeseman, and Dowdy. For that first mile in the team race, Columbus North well ahead of Carmel by 68 points. So I've seen a good outing from their boys team and now their girls team so far through that first mile. As it's Hendegren in the V formation ahead of Cheeseman and Lotta and Dowdy. Score back there in 5th. Along with Annika Swan. As Hendegren leads the crew up and through that downhill stretch and now making their way towards the 3K mark. Heading up north on the course. Distance now starting to separate from Hendegren and Lotta. So the senior showing the freshman some challenges now here almost halfway through this race. The all-time best in this course, 17 minutes and then 0.6 of a second. So 17 flat, then 0.6 of a second. And that was ran back in 2015, and Zariel Macchia was darn close to breaking that last year when she won this race. And if we're talking about having advantages, if any of the athletes that's really have an advantage, it's Hendegren, especially coming from 4,500 feet of elevation. And for her, racing at less than 200 feet at sea level, which this is just... she's just getting oxygen from this, no problem. Just past 10 minutes and past that 3-kilometer sign. And so far, if we're basing not quite the calculations, but it was 5:17 for that first mile. Could see a pretty even split here. Coming up that 2 mile for Hendegren. And has really pushed the pace on this second mile, and see everyone start to really fall back. Just passing 10:34 now, so just be a little over. .517 on this second mile as she goes right by that sign in 10:46. And Eileen Lotta and Cheeseman just 2 seconds behind Hendegren. She begins to throw in some surges here around these sharp turns on this course with less than 2K to go. Cheeseman to second, Lotta falls back to third, and Dowdy right there in fourth, trying to run down the freshman. Updating the team race. Almost all of the athletes cross that 2 mile mark. And at this point, Columbus North, the only school with 5 across that line. And just passing 12 minutes now, so a little bit over 4 minutes remaining in this race. And we'll keep a close eye on the clock and see how close Hendegren can get within that course record time. And no high school athlete has ever broken 17 minutes on this course, according to the records on Laverne Gibson website. Correct. Should say that specifically, no high school girl has broken 17 minutes. While this lead continues to grow, the team race continues to narrow. Columbus North now just 15 points ahead of Carmel, Indiana, 128 to 143. Mount Prospect just in third now with 173 points. So the team race getting tighter and tighter as we get down to the very end of this race. But really, it's been Jane Hendegren the last 2 kilometers really starting to put the hammer here on, which arguably is the toughest part of this course, the uphill climb. Which again, for her, may not necessarily be an uphill climb since she runs on mountains all the time in Provo, Utah. For a course like this actually plays in her favor. Yet we still see Cheeseman and Dowdy still hanging around. Just now coming up to 14 minutes. It really is what's been a bounce back performance after finishing 4th at Woodbridge Cross Country Classic, which was a race that she really wanted to win. I mean, that was a race that she felt like she was confident enough that she could bounce back, especially after an injury-ridden season last year. And before she got injured, of course, she won the Woodbridge Cross Country Classic as a junior and thought, well, feel healthier as ever. This might be my chance right here to go back-to-back, and unfortunately that was not the case, and so she has to settle for 4th. But really, today it's been all Jane Hendegren since that mile and a half mark. As no one's really challenged her in this latter half of the race. Oddly enough, has never broken 17 minutes in a cross-country race either. And again, that also, when you're racing at elevation, it makes it a little bit challenging. And so an opportunity not only to break 17 minutes for the very first time, but to smash the course record is within sight as she's coming up onto 15:20 as she hits the home stretch now. Making the long trip from Provo, Utah, the future BYU Cougar. Running a solo effort here to the very end. And it certainly bounced back in a big way. As I said, after finishing 4th at Woodbridge Cross Country Classic, probably left that meet with a little bit of a sour taste in her mouth and wanted to get right back in the win column. 16 minutes now, and it's less than 300 meters to go for Hendegren. The 10th View senior rewriting the history books once more right here in the Midwest on a course that's seen a lot of fast times over the years, but it's never seen a sub-17 performance in the high school girls 5K race. And will become the first ever high school girl to dip under 17 minutes and shatters it by a long shot. Jane Hendegren, your Nike XC Town Twilight champion in record fashion. 16:50.7. Not only the first time that she breaks 17 minutes in her high school career for a cross-country 5K. She annihilates that course record by almost 10 seconds, which has stood for almost 10 years. And now it's all Jane Hendegren alone atop that list. And it's Libby Dowdy finishing in 2nd in 17 minutes. Also close to dipping under 17 minutes for that race. Abby Faith Cheeseman finishing 3rd in 17:13. And the NXN All-American Isabella Keller capturing 4th in 17:15. And then Julia Score finishing 17:16. So 3 of the top 5 we'll expect to see all back here for NXR Midwest, as they'll all be vying for spots to head back to Nike Cross Nationals. And then Annika Swan, which wasn't particularly necessarily on my radar going into this race, but should have been, especially with a 16:51 effort that she ran a couple weekends ago, and finishing 6th overall. So that's another girl that'll be in perhaps title contention. This may be one of the closest Midwest regions we've seen in a while. And actually just getting confirmation now. So that actually was not a course record, unfortunately. So that was my bad. I was looking at prior records. There's actually Rachel Forsyth from last year on that NXR course. Ran 16:30. So my apologies for that call right there. So a big climb up for the Carmel girls after being in second with a mile to go. They make up a lot of ground past Columbus North and finish just ahead of Mount Prospect in the team race, 149 points to 171. Of course, unofficially to this point right now, until every single runner is across that finish line. Again, apologize for both the girls and the boys. They were not course records. They were actually just a little bit shy of those course records. Rachel Forsyth actually has the course record from last year's NXR Midwest in 16:31.1. And then the boys' course record, Hunter Jones back in 2022, 14:21.8. So again, apologize once again for those wrong results. Just wrapped up here from the Nike XC Town Twilight with the Girls Race of Champions. Look back at that finish from Jane Henderen and really what was a dominating performance and a massive bounce back win for the senior out of Provo, Utah. And again, really controlled the latter half of this race, pulled away with about 2K to go, and then really put the distance on the rest of the field and come away with a 10-second victory. Again, making that trek all the way from the mountain region over towards the Midwest and winning in 16:50, one of the fastest times ever on this course. Again, not a course record. Rachel Forsyth, 16:31 at NXR Midwest last year. So nonetheless, a really good race.